The big international players are in the spotlight at COP26, but the leaders of two small island states are hoping to make history. The Caribbean nation of Antigua and Barbuda and the Pacific nation of Tuvalu say they are being ignored in the fight against climate change. They say their islands are already paying the price of environmental damages larger nations have caused in the world. So the two countries have signed an agreement in an attempt to reach one goal: to make large emitters pay for the severe damage to small island states so they can protect themselves better.
Greatly humbled to be able
Payam
to
Akhavan is an international lawyer representing both nations. He's also a member of the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague. He's in Glasgow. Professor Akhavan, can you explain how these two small island nations are hoping to fight back against some of the damage that climate change has caused?
Well, Katie, small island states are the canary in the coal mine of climate catastrophe. And it was the governments of Antigua and Barbuda and Tuvalu who concluded this historic agreement to bring together small island states to basically speak truth to power, because it's COP26 and they're tired of vague commitments and empty promises. And we have to remember that for small island states, whether it's rising sea levels, extreme weather events, acidification of the ocean, coral bleaching, loss of biodiversity, for them global warming is an existential issue. Some of these islands are literally disappearing. The Prime Minister of Antigua told me today how extreme weather events have obliterated the island of Barbuda. The Prime Minister of Tuvalu told me today how his nation is going to literally disappear. It's going to go under the sea. So they are the bellwether for the rest of the world, and they're tired of empty promises at a time when the world has to take vigorous action, and they're going to invoke international law to obtain justice.
And so I understand that, and to put it plainly, you are hoping to take this in front of an international tribunal under the UN Marine Convention that many countries have signed on to.
Well, there are a number of options available to small island states. There's the possibility of an advisory opinion before the International Court of Justice or before the International Law of the Sea Tribunal. And in fact, the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, which predates the UN Framework Convention by at least 10 years, has very robust provisions on protection of the marine environment. And we have to remember that oceans are the biggest sink for carbon, and in effect, some 95% of global warming is absorbed by the oceans. So there are various procedures which small island states can invoke, and hopefully this will change the conversation about climate change.
Now, a number of large nations have ratified the UN Convention. The United States has not, and it is among the largest polluters. How does that tie into all of this?
Well, there are in international law treaty obligations, but there are also what we call customary law obligations. And protection of the marine environment is a norm of customary law that's binding on the United States and other states, irrespective of any specific treaties that they've concluded. And the principle, Katie, is really simple. Do no harm to others. The principle is as simple as the polluter pays. If you pollute, you must pay compensation for those who are injured as a result. So small island states make a negligible contribution to global warming, but they suffer a disproportionate amount of the harm. So it's not so much that a specific tribunal will bind any specific states, but these tribunals will spell out the rules of international law that should inform the climate negotiations. So, for example, climate finance is not so much about development assistance, it's about compensation, it's about justice. And I think that would really help reframe the discourse about what it is that the emission of greenhouse gases are all about. And it's no longer the case that we don't know what the consequences of continuing business as usual is. So at this stage, it would be willful blindness for governments to leave COP26 without making drastic reductions in carbon emissions and without providing compensation. And let's remember that already in Copenhagen in 2009, 12 years ago, there was a promise to have a $100 billion climate finance fund, which has yet to materialize.
And that is something that I know that a number of these leaders at the summit have tried to work toward. Canada and Germany putting out that statement saying they hope to get there by 2023, but obviously missing that goal. I'm very curious, these small island states don't have the same influence as other world powers. Will that become a challenge in seeking compensation?
Well, of course, this is the challenge, isn't it? The government of Tuvalu, an indigenous nation of 12,000 people, which is disappearing into the sea, does not have the same clout as the United States, China, and the major polluters. So this is really a David and Goliath contest. It's the smallest of nations who are really steering the conscience of humankind, because what happens to them is going to happen to the rest of humankind. So it's quite remarkable, and I think it will go down in history, that it was the smallest of nations that at this crucial historical juncture exercised moral leadership and what I would like to call planetary politics. They understand better than anyone, in particular the indigenous peoples in the South Pacific, like our own indigenous peoples in Canada, that in a contest between humankind and Earth, the Earth is going to win. So I hope that it will not just be small island nations acting in isolation, but a growing chorus of humankind will stand in solidarity with them, because the issues that they raise concern all of us.
Just one more question really quickly. I know that you're trying to get additional countries to sign on to this. Have you had any luck there in that, and what happens next?
Well, there have been a number of small island states that we have spoken to today who have expressed great interest in this initiative. So the government of Antigua and Barbuda and Tuvalu are simply the first two signatories. And the Alliance of Small Island States for many years has been speaking about the need for radical, far-reaching action. And they're, frankly speaking, enraged that there is no serious discussion of compensation and damages on the agenda at COP26.
All right, Professor Akhavan, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Katie.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.